Welcome, you're watching FYI. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, yesterday as promised, we are going to tell you everything you need to know about clotting related to the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Does this sound familiar to you? Did you get the vaccine? Which one did you get? Are you sure Covishield is safe? Well, if these are the questions you are asking as well, FYI has all the answers for you. But first, how did it all begin? Now, stories about people getting blood clots soon after taking the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine first came after a report on death and 3 hospitalizations in Norway, which found serious blood clottings in adults who had received the vaccine. Now, Ireland then soon temporarily suspended the jabs, whom after several other nations in the European Union and now increasingly even outside have put a pause on the vaccine. To first understand, let me tell you, as of today, how many countries have actually suspended or banned the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. A lot of countries are calling it a pause as well, as it could just might be a temporary thing. Okay, let me go to my whiteboard for that. So I've got a graphic for you which takes you through over 20 countries, about 21, 22 of these countries, which have all paused as of now the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. It includes Italy, it includes Spain, it includes France, Ireland, Netherlands, Germany, Luxembourg, so Sweden, Norway, Iceland, all of them now saying that they are not ready to vaccinate people with Oxford AstraZeneca. Now, when you hear stuff like that, you obviously are thinking, what's going to happen next? And as the anxiety over the new vaccine continued to sort of create havoc in a way, anxieties got more and more governments to talk about and put a ban on AstraZeneca. WHO was forced to step in. And what is it that WHO had to say? Now, WHO went on to say that they had a meeting and they reviewed the entire process, and they believe, and in that meeting they found out that there was no reason that it was the reports of rare blood coagulation disorders were actually not found to have a direct indication or perhaps a direct link with the jab altogether. What else did they say? They said that across EU, UK, 15 events of deep vein thrombosis or DVTs as they are called, blood clot in a view, in a sense that they said that in a meeting we discussed this, particularly this issue, and we found that there was no evidence at all. What WHO also said that was that the benefits of the vaccine far outweighed the risks at all. Alright, so that is also an important statement to perhaps keep in mind. So what has happened? We have obviously got the countries which are saying we're not sure about this vaccine. WHO saying no reason to worry at all. And then what is AstraZeneca saying? Let's listen to that. Well, AstraZeneca gave out a statement, said that 22 events of these blood clots have entered the lungs and reportedly amongst vaccines have been found. We are looking at these, but they said that figures much lower than that would be expected to occur naturally in general population of this size and is similar across the licensed COVID-19 vaccines as well. So they're saying it would have happened in general, right? There is no link directly to this vaccine. They also said, in fact, it was Professor Andrew Poland reassuring that evidence that there is no increasing blood clot phenomena in the UK. He is actually somebody who worked on the vaccine, and he gave out a statement to BBC later and said that absolutely critical that we don't have a problem of not vaccinating people altogether. So, what's happened? Countries have said they're anxious, they're going to pause it. WHO says nothing to worry. AstraZeneca obviously says there is no reason to worry at all. What should you believe? Well, in order to understand that, I've got for you some basic details on what exactly is blood clotting, right? How does it occur? Why do you need to worry? And when do you need to get worried, right? So let's talk about that. Blood clotting, contrary to popular belief, is actually healthy and life-saving. How? Because in certain cases, it is the blood clotting that stops the oozing out of blood when you get a cut or you get into an accident, etc. Look at all those points here that I'm mentioning for you, and that is when it gets into heart attack, strokes, or other serious sort of medical problems altogether. Blood clot, like I said, it's a clump and gel-like phenomena that it gets stuck there. It also, like I said, if it does not dissolve, that is when it becomes a problem. An immobile blood clot generally won't harm, but there is a chance that it could move and become dangerous as well. That is the time when you need to contact your doctors urgently and ensure that you have a chat with them about it. Now, like I said, call your doctor immediately after that. Now, healthcare professionals will be able to look into the symptoms and medical history and then talk about it as well. Now, also, so the question is, if you understand blood clotting, if you understand the entire history behind it as well, what we need to understand now is how is Oxford AstraZeneca actually faring against the other vaccines? Example, which vaccine has the greatest global reach after all? Well, at the moment, the highest global reach with a margin of just about 5 over here actually comes in from Pfizer BioNTech, which is about that many million at the moment, and then followed by Oxford AstraZeneca, followed by Moderna. You see that over here, Sputnik, Sinovac, and several of them, one, and really of Covaxin and Bharat Biotech happening altogether. This is again a data that we've got from international websites so far. Okay, so enough about graphics over there and understanding what exactly is the issue over here. The question that I've been asked very frequently on this is, what happens next? Who's going to give the final verdict on what happens? Should you get it? Should you not? Now, some anxiety about the new vaccine is understandable, and the suspected reactions should be investigated as well. But when these countries sort of suspended, the question is, who gets to have the final call? Have they finally sort of let go of all the roadblocks here, anxiousness here, and what do we do? The verdict so far on NDTV or on FYI is that we'll have to go with the experts, and for that we have an excellent panel for you today. We've got Dr. Shahid Jamil joining us. He's the director for the Triveni School of Business, Ashoka University. Dr. Shekhar Mande is with us. He's the Director General of CSIR. We've got Dr. Sunila Garg. She is the member of the Delhi COVID-19 Task Force. We also have two doctors, in fact one doctor and a professor joining us from London. Very happy to have Dr. Vikram joining us. He is MD and MRCOG from University of London, and we also have Professor Sanjeev Krishna, who's a professor for molecular parasitology and medicine. Let me give the first word to Dr. Shahid Jamil. Welcome back on the program, sir. First up, let me understand from you, what has been your recommendation so far? How are you seeing all these reactions coming in to Covishield, what is AstraZeneca called in India at the moment? And are you, like several others, one with some questions in your mind?
Well, thank you, Sonam. Also, very glad to be on the program with my friends Shekhar and Sanjeev. This is the only time I get to see them. You know, this, what we have to really understand is whether this is random chance or is it something that is happening due to vaccines. The US CDC says that there is a chance of having 1 to 2,000 blood clots at random per million people every year.
Okay.
So that is 1 to 2 per 1,000 per year. If you translate that figure to, let's say, a 10-day period, and I'm saying a 10-day period because usually if something happens to you within 10 days of getting a vaccine, you try to link it to the vaccine, right? A new vaccine.
The timeline is crucial, yeah.
Right. So if you look at it in those 10 days, then you come to a figure of roughly 25 to 50 clots per million population at random, okay, over a 10-day period. In the European Union, 30 clots have been reported per 5 million infections, and that is a rate of 6 per million infections, which is much lower than the random event of 25 to 50. So it is nothing more than a random event. Point number 2 is the only way to say that this is because of vaccines is when you directly compare vaccines to placebo, and that happens in a clinical trial. Data from clinical trial shows that getting clots in people who got the vaccine versus who got the placebo is not statistically different. So, for all practical purposes, this is random chance. This is not linked to vaccines.
All right. Strong words there. Random chance is what Dr. Shahid Jamil is saying. Let me bring in Professor Sanjeev Krishna on this one. Professor Krishna, you're somebody who's been looking into these details very, very closely. What I want to understand from you is that when people get COVID, in sort of moderate to severe cases altogether, we have seen clotting as a fallout of COVID, right? And this was a major concern. I remember even when my father got it, he was put on blood thinners, etc. And this has been the case with several people. Then, if you look at the tech of the vaccine altogether, is that in a way, because the tech works in a way that it triggers an immune response system to fight out the virus altogether. So is clotting then a fallout of that altogether?
Yeah, thank you for having me back. It's very good to see everyone also. So that's a very interesting question. Before I discuss it in a little bit of detail, I just want to say that I would agree with Shahid completely that at the moment, if you're offered a vaccine, please take it. Because the benefits of the vaccine still far outweigh whatever the risks are. So that has to be the key message from my side. Now, the question you ask is, something happens with clotting during infections, active infections. How could this in some way relate to what we're trying to do to prevent infections using a vaccine? Now, I take fully the calculations about deep vein thrombosis that have been already stated, and the risks are low for that. Now, the cautionary note is that the clots that have raised concerns in Germany, for example, are a slightly different form of clotting problem. So these are cerebral venous thrombosis, for example, and also disordered clotting. They're very rare events, and we keep this in mind, but it's still important to try and understand what the link might be. Just like you're saying, could it, is there something to do with the infection part of the virus, or what is it? And that is the process at the moment that is going on. Trying to understand the mechanisms, first of all, the commonality of it, how it's very infrequent, but is it still above statistical chance? And the feeling is it probably is.
Okay.
And then secondly, is there a link? Is there a causal mechanism? Now, while this is being worked out, I would only say one or two very quick things. One is we must respect the regulators of the countries. They are always there to protect the patients. And if they say pause, we pause.
Professor, can I hold you to that though? Can I hold you to that? Because I'm constantly hearing this and everybody is hearing, oh, you must get the vaccine, but countries continue to ban it as well. So as a person who's just waiting to get the jab or waiting in the wings, really, tell me one thing, right? It's a little confusing when you say get the jab, but you continuously have more and more countries. Like I pointed out, and the world map was there, more than 20 countries across the world have put a ban on it as well. Or let me not call it a ban, let me call it a pause till the time more evidence is there. So both the things can't be happening simultaneously.
It's a square and a circle, isn't it? I agree with you. The thing is that in COVID world, as I've said before, things move very quickly. And I think within an hour or two, literally from now, we should have a verdict from the European Medicines Agency about their view of the safety. So it's not too long to wait. And each regulator in each country makes its own judgments. Like the MHRA in the UK, 17 million people have, had the AstraZeneca, and they're happy to go ahead. But I think we just have to be aware this is a new technology. It's been a year since the problem started, and we have to, just recognize and be aware as to what is unfolding and investigate it.
Sure. I have lots of questions here and very little time, so I'm going to quickly take a break and come back and address all of those. Be right back. Welcome back. Lots of concern over whether or not Covishield or the Oxford AstraZeneca causes blood clotting. Let's get some answers from our experts now. Let me bring in Dr. Vikram at this point. Dr. Vikram, you know, India is a country where heart diseases are very prevalent, if I can say that. We don't have a back of the envelope number on how many people have it, of course. But at this point, people who are already on blood thinners, and thus, I mean, people who are likely to get more blood clotting, what is your advice to them?
Well, once again, I would agree with the other experts on your panel. Is that the first thing to say is we still don't have any evidence that the blood clots we've seen so far are linked to the vaccines. Yes, the regulators have taken an action where they are trying to analyze if there is any evidence that links the blood clots to the vaccines that are being given out. But so far, there is no evidence. It looks like these are random events which would have anyway happened even if the vaccine hadn't been administered.
But why is it not happening with other vaccines then? Why only AstraZeneca?
Well, it's the reach. It depends on how many people have actually been reporting the events following the vaccination that has been given. And it could simply be a random chance that the reach of the vaccine in a particular area where there has been monitoring and the reporting of events is bigger as compared to another area where the reporting has not yet been completed.
I sadly have very little time left. I want to bring in Dr. Shekhar Mande also. He hasn't spoken so far. Dr. Mande, quickly, before I bring in Dr. Sunila Garg as well, on what do you think is happening over here and why is it that AstraZeneca only keeps falling into one controversy after the other? Dr. Mande?
Okay, regarding the comparison of AstraZeneca versus Pfizer and all?
Yeah.
No, so I think probably it's happening there as well. I don't know how it is being reported to the regulatory authorities. Typically what happens is that once a vaccine or a drug is approved, it is put under a very strict what is called as pharmacovigilance or something similar to phase 4 trials, in which if any adverse events are recorded later after it has been approved, they have to be reported to the regulator. And it just appears this case that AstraZeneca is probably some of the events have been reported. I don't know anything about whether Pfizer reports have been reported or not. But as such, I would like to agree with what Shahid Jamil said. It appears to be a random event.
Most of them are saying that. Actually, I'm really out of time, but just last word to Dr. Sunila Garg over there. Sorry, ma'am, we have very little time left on the program, but quickly want to understand from you. US took, for example, so much longer to give approval to AstraZeneca than it did to other vaccines as well. Why do you think that happened?
Actually, when we were doing the trial was stopped thrice actually. Once it was because of the recruitment of a person with multiple sclerosis. Second time it was, basically related to neurological disorders. Third time in India, because once a person, he complained of, compromise, neurological compromise and cognitive, decline. So, but then every time it was proved and the trial was stopped, but it was proved that it is not linked to the vaccine. But here I would say, and I like to agree with the experts, that 15 events which are having deep vein thrombosis and 22 which are related to pulmonary embolism out of 1.7 crore individuals. We have to look at the number of cases as well. So that is where we are looking at that from a public health perspective. I'll look at it that primarily how many cases we have averted as against how many vaccines we have given. Right. So that is one thing which needs to be looked into carefully. But again, nonetheless, we have to be careful about adverse events and at the same time not to create panic in the minds of the individual. Right. So every event needs to be investigated very, very carefully before, because there are 20 countries which you yourself said have stopped the vaccine, right. and we need to allay fear and anxiety out of those. Right. And also,
we all need to do that. And this information, the questions I'm asking today is just to sort of bring out that information. I'm completely, sadly out of time, and I would so want to ask you guys more questions on this, but we leave it there for the moment. Come back on this as when we have the report from the EU coming in. Thanks for watching.